So as you guys can see, she stated Oregon's Dante Moore will return to school for next season. That impacts the Browns, who have the number 6 overall pick. Now, she has been receiving so much heat. Why are you a reporter? You're never even close to what the Browns are going to do. Moore was going to the Jets if he was declaring for the National Football League. We weren't taking him anyway. No, it didn't. As you guys can clearly see as we scroll, everybody is definitely against what she stated. No, it doesn't. It never impacted the Browns. Mary Kay, no one in their right mind thought the Browns would draft Dante. This chick amazes me every day with how dumb she is.
What have you decided about your future?
Yeah, of course, first things first, I have to give glory to God for, of course, letting me be on this platform I am, the blessings he's given me. Yeah, this past year was a year that I remember for the rest of my life. Just my teammates, the adversity we went through, and just the way to be able to, as a kid, to play in the semifinals. And, of course, the year didn't end the way you wanted to end. And, of course, got to give your kudos and credit to Indiana. But, yeah, with this decision, mainly all my life, it's kind of just been, being as most prepared as I can for any situation I go into.
Listen closely, because this story is bigger than Dante Moore, that it's bigger than Oregon, and it's definitely bigger than one reckless tweet. This is about how Shedeur Sanders stays at the center of every conversation, even when the news isn't about him. Because the moment Dante Moore announced he was returning to Oregon for the 2026 season, the media couldn't help themselves. A Browns insider, Mary Kay, immediately tried to flip that news into a Shedeur Sanders jab. And now, she's paying for it publicly. And here's the funny part, she didn't expose Shedeur, she exposed herself. Because once again, when it comes to Shedeur Sanders, the media rushes to talk around him instead of admitting what's right in front of them. Let's talk about it. Because Dante Moore staying in college wasn't about Cleveland, that it wasn't about draft position, and it sure wasn't about replacing Shedeur Sanders. But the media wanted you to think otherwise. And that's where this story really begins. Now before we go any further, ask yourself this. Why does every quarterback conversation somehow circle back to Shedeur Sanders? Why is his name still triggering insiders, reporters, and former teammates? And why does karma keep spinning the block on everybody who tries to play him sideways? Let's break it all down. First things first, Dante Moore made a personal decision. He talked about preparation. He talked about growth. He talked about unfinished business. Not once did he mention the Cleveland Browns. Not once did he hint at the NFL being ready right now. And that's completely fair. Dante Moore said he wants to be fully prepared when his NFL moment comes. That's maturity. That's patience. That's development. But somehow, Mary Kay saw that announcement and decided to tweet, Oregon's Dante Moore will return to school for next season. That impacts the Browns, who have the number 6 overall pick. And right there, that's where everything went left. Because impact how exactly? The Browns were never drafting Dante Moore. The Browns were never positioning Dante Moore over Shedeur Sanders. And the Browns' quarterback situation was never tied to Dante Moore's college decision. Fans saw right through it. And the comments cooked her instantly. People weren't confused, they were annoyed. Because this wasn't reporting. This was trolling disguised as analysis. And once again, Shedeur Sanders became the target without even saying a word.
Since a 4-year-old, I dreamed about playing in the NFL, and of course, the NFL is something that, the professionals play at, and I feel like, I could have been, excited going into there and wherever I got drafted, being blessed to be where I am, but I kind of feel like, coming back is the best thing for me, to make sure that when that day does happen, that I'm full prepared, I'm able to go and play my best.
Now, Shedeur Sanders' former teammate, Jordan Seaton, entered the transfer portal a few days ago, which definitely raised many questions as far as his loyalty to primetime Deion Sanders, especially considering how loyal, Shedeur and Travis Hunter was to the program. And I never would have thought Jordan Seaton would have decided to enter the portal. And he reacted to Dante Moore. He basically stated Dante Moore is coming back and he's being a big troll. Everybody in the comments is definitely on Jordan Seaton. This MF man, seat please, I want you to go anywhere but Oregon.
Let me ask you something real quick. Why do some insiders panic whenever Shedeur's name stays relevant? Why do they feel the need to shift narratives instead of letting the truth stand? Because here's the truth they don't want to say out loud. Shedeur Sanders is still the most talked about quarterback heading into the future, whether they like it or not. And that makes certain people uncomfortable. Now let's talk about Dante Moore's actual words. He said coming back to Oregon is about preparation, about learning more, about leading his team to a championship. That sounds like a quarterback handling his own journey, not someone running from competition. And yet, the media tried to frame it like this somehow blocks Shedeur's path. That logic falls apart instantly, because Shedeur Sanders' situation has nothing to do with Dante Moore. Shedeur didn't get a full off-season. Shedeur didn't get consistent first-team reps. Shedeur didn't have an offensive line worth defending. And yet, he still performed. So why is the conversation always about who isn't Shedeur, instead of what Shedeur has already proven? That's the real question. And the fans, they're starting to see it. Now around this same time, another name popped up, Jordan Seaton. Former teammate, highly recruited, once seen as part of the future. And suddenly, he enters the transfer portal. Then he jumps online trolling Dante Moore's return like it's a shot at Colorado. And people didn't like that at all. Because loyalty still matters to fans, even if it doesn't always matter in today's game. Jordan Seaton leaving raised eyebrows, but trolling afterward? That's where the respect dropped. And it only added fuel to the fire. Because while some players bounce around chasing situations, others stand firm. Shedeur Sanders stood firm. Travis Hunter stood firm. And now, fans are noticing who stayed solid and who switched sides. Let me ask you this. In today's college football world, is loyalty dead, or is it just rare? Because when you look at Shedeur Sanders, you see something different. You see leadership. You see accountability. You see someone who doesn't duck smoke or dodge responsibility. And that's why narratives keep forming around him. Because you can't ignore someone who refuses to fold. Now let's be real, this story keeps circling back to the same point. Shedeur Sanders lives rent-free in the media's headspace. They don't criticize him directly anymore. They talk around him. They boost other quarterbacks. They push other names. They highlight every alternative. But none of it sticks. Because results matter. And here's the part nobody wants to admit. Shedeur Sanders is still QB1 in this entire conversation. Dante Moore returning doesn't change that. Transfer portal drama doesn't change that. Media tweets don't change that. What would change things? Building an offensive line, adding real weapons, giving Shedeur a full offseason. Then, and only then, judge quarterback play. But instead, we get distractions. And Mary Kay's tweet became the perfect example of how far some insiders will go just to stir the pot. And guess what? It backfired. Because fans didn't attack Shedeur, they defended him. They called out lazy reporting. They called out forced narratives. They called out agenda-driven coverage. And that's new. Because for the first time, the audience is pushing back. Now let me ask you another question, and really think about this. If Shedeur Sanders wasn't that guy, why would this much energy be spent trying to downplay him? Nobody works this hard to discredit someone irrelevant. And that's why this entire situation matters. Because Dante Moore made his choice, Jordan Seaton made his choice, Mary Kay made her tweet. And all of it somehow still circles back to Shedeur Sanders being the standard. Here's the truth that keeps repeating itself. Shedeur doesn't need hype. The chaos around him creates it. The media can't stop watching. Former teammates can't stop reacting. Fans can't stop debating. And that tells you everything you need to know. Now heading into the 2026 football season, one thing is clear. Shedeur Sanders is still the measuring stick. You can mention Dante Moore. You can mention Mendoza. You can mention anybody else. But none of them changed the core issue. The system failed Shedeur, not the other way around. And when that system gets fixed, that's when the conversation changes completely. So I want to hear from you now. Do you think Mary Kay crossed the line with that tweet? Was it reporting or trolling? And why do you think Shedeur Sanders keeps being the centerpiece of every quarterback discussion? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Because this story isn't done, the narratives aren't done, and Shedeur Sanders definitely isn't done. And if history tells us anything, karma has a funny way of spinning the block. Alright, let's keep going, because there's still a lot more to unpack here, and this story does not end with one tweet or one transfer decision. Now let's zoom out for a second. Because when you really look at the timeline, everything that's happened recently points to one uncomfortable truth for the media and certain insiders. They underestimated Shedeur Sanders, and now they don't know how to walk it back. Think about it. Last season, Shedeur didn't get stability, he didn't get protection, he didn't get continuity. Yet somehow, the conversation after the season wasn't, how do we help Shedeur succeed? It was, who's replacing him? That tells you everything. Because when a quarterback struggles due to circumstances, the smart conversation is about fixing the circumstances. But when the media already has a narrative in mind, they go hunting for alternatives instead. And that's exactly why Dante Moore's announcement became ammo. Not because it mattered, but because it could be framed. And Mary Kay tried to frame it. But here's where she miscalculated. Fans today are smarter than ever. They watch the games. They understand context. So when she suggested Dante Moore's return impacts the Browns, people immediately asked the obvious question. Impacts how? No plan changed. No draft board shifted. No quarterback room suddenly panicked. The only thing that happened was a reminder that Shedeur Sanders still sits at the center of the storm, even when the news has nothing to do with him. And that's power, whether people want to admit it or not. Now let's talk about Jordan Seaton again, because this part matters more than people think. Jordan Seaton entering the transfer portal already raised eyebrows. But the trolling afterward? That's what flipped the switch for a lot of fans. Because it highlighted a contrast. On one side, you have players like Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter, guys who stayed loyal, absorbed criticism, and carried the weight of a program. On the other side, you have players moving quietly, then throwing shots once they're halfway out the door. And look, nobody is saying players can't transfer. That's the game now. But how you move still matters. And when fans saw Jordan Seaton clowning Dante Moore's return, it felt less like humor and more like bitterness. Which brings us back to Shedeur again. Because Shedeur never did that. He never subtweeted teammates. He never trolled programs. He never blamed others publicly. He took the hits. He stood at the podium. He answered the questions. And yet, he's the one constantly questioned. Let me ask you something, and be honest with yourself. How many quarterbacks would still command this much attention after everything Shedeur went through? Most would fade out of the conversation. Most would be written off. But Shedeur, he stays trending. And that's why this media attention exists. Because people don't know how to critique him without exposing the flaws around him. So instead, they do things like this. They inflate unrelated news. They exaggerate implications. They sneak in narratives through tweets. And when fans clap back, suddenly it's, why is everyone so sensitive? No, people are just tired of lazy framing. If Shedeur Sanders truly wasn't the guy, the media wouldn't be working this hard to convince you. Nobody pushes alternatives this aggressively unless they're trying to redirect attention. Now think about Dante Moore again. His decision to return to Oregon actually reinforces something important: development matters. And that's ironic, because Shedeur was never given that same grace. When Shedeur struggled, it was, is he the answer? When others struggle, it's, they need more time. That double standard is impossible to ignore. And fans see it now. That's why Mary Kay's tweet didn't land the way she expected. Instead of stirring debate, it united people against the narrative. And that should be a wake-up call. Because the audience has changed. They don't just read headlines anymore. They break down film. They understand roster construction. They know what bad offensive line play looks like. And they know when a quarterback is being scapegoated. So let me throw this question to you right now. Do you think the media would talk about Shedeur Sanders differently if his last name wasn't Sanders? Because that's a conversation people avoid, but it's real. The expectations, the scrutiny, the tone, everything around Shedeur is amplified. And yet, he keeps standing tall. The Browns don't need another narrative, they need stability. And if they were serious about evaluating quarterbacks, they'd start by asking why Shedeur never got a fair environment to begin with. Instead, insiders chase engagement. And sometimes, that blows up in their face. Which is exactly what happened here. Mary Kay wanted to spark a conversation. She just didn't expect the audience to flip it back on her. And now, the heat is real. Because once fans lose trust in your analysis, everything you say gets questioned. And that's the danger of trolling as reporting. Now as we move forward into the next season, one thing is unavoidable. Shedeur Sanders will be part of the conversation whether people like it or not. If he succeeds, they'll say, well, look at the talent around him. If he struggles, they'll say, see? We told you. But what they can't do anymore is pretend he doesn't matter. Because this entire saga, Dante Moore, Jordan Seaton, Mary Kay, proves the opposite. Shedeur matters so much that people can't stop talking around him. And that's where we'll leave it for now. But I want you to sound off. Do you think this was karma playing out in real time? Do you think the media has already picked sides against Shedeur? And do you believe 2026 will finally be the year where the excuses run out? Let me know in the comments. Because this story is still unfolding, and we'll be right here covering every angle. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure you like the video, subscribe to Gridiron Insights, and turn on post notifications so you never miss an update. We cover real NFL stories, real controversy, and real football, without the fake narratives. This is Gridiron Insights, and we'll catch you on the next one.